I'm Felicity Hanna, and today on Business Daily, the latest episode in our Million by 30 series. CEO and founder of Empower, Ali Salama, tells us how he hit that million landmark before his 30th birthday and what he's learned on the way.
This is sweat equity that you're building, i.e., so other people don't have shareholders' equity. You have that. That means that it's your own skin in the game.
Ali's company makes content that aims to improve mental health awareness in the Middle East. He's experienced clinical depression himself. The podcast Ali presents, Empathy Always Wins, has had millions of downloads, and Empower is valued at more than $1 million.
And the moment you can step your foot off the engine and things are still running, that's when you know, oh God, you do have a business now.
That's Ali Salama on Million by 30. I started my chat with Ali by asking him to define himself and tell me what really makes him tick.
I think I am a social artistpreneur. I'm an artist at heart. I'm an entrepreneur by profession. I really care about people living the best quality of life that they can. I really feel for young people who don't have access to support, mental health support or well-being support. And for me, I am an athlete. My spirit is a spirit of, I would say, an athlete. I always was raised in a swimming pool up to the age of 13, training around 9 times a week. And I've always been shouted at, Yalla batal, like, let's go champ, all that stuff. So I've always had that mentality where waking up at 5 a.m, training with people who are now making world records in their own respective sports. And that allowed me to today be someone who feels that this is my duty and my responsibility to do what I'm doing. And I find that finding deep, meaningful connections is what drives my spirit and soul forward. And I'm really not interested in anything other than that, because I guess what you win in private, you wear publicly.
Ali is Egyptian, but grew up partly in Dubai.
I come from a very privileged background. So I went to a really good school. I mean, the fact that I am Egyptian and I speak this quality level of English, I completely understand the privilege. But I also always say that this is a responsibility, which is, a really big factor behind the drive that I have. I think that privilege is going to, a school that the president's grandson was, knowing a lot of people in that upper class in a country that is that represents the quarter of the Arab world.
He went to university in Canada, which is when his difficulties with his own mental health began.
I've always been traveling around, and I definitely think that the hardest thing I struggle with per se is stability. So I always knew that those 4 years were going to be years I wanted to study in Toronto and, start any entrepreneurial venture. And I actually studied entrepreneurship at Ryerson University. Ryerson's Entrepreneurship Institute was my selected university. I really wanted to do the entrepreneurial program there. They had the best entrepreneurship school I knew.
What was it about entrepreneurship that attracted you rather than, say, studying to be a doctor or an accountant or anything else?
Look, I mean, I really did not like school. I think my dad and my mom, they're academic. I had no way out of school. So if I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I had to look at a degree that allowed me to not do any exams. So that was the degree and that was it.
What was it like moving across the world at quite a young age?
It was scary. It was really scary. I remember, spending my 18th birthday and 19th and 20th and 21st, like literally in my own condo. I did not make friends. It was not easy there. And I always feared something. I always feared that, if those classmates knew that I had this place downtown, my spot would be the party spot. So I turned into this incredibly studious, when I say studious, I mean bookworm type of guy that just completely, read so much. I found my heroes in books and I just didn't know what I want. And I think that I kept reading and understanding what I want. I always wanted to be successful, but I just didn't know what that meant. I did not go to residence or res, as people say, because I told my mom that, why spend X amount of pounds or dollars in renting or getting somewhere where we could just, if you have a down payment, this would save you so much money on the return in an X amount of years. So I always had that mindset, even when I was 16. So they bought it, and but the psychological cost of that was something I didn't know in advance, in hindsight, that I wouldn't be able to bear.
So it was while you were at university in Toronto that's when your mental health began to suffer. Was that the first time you'd experienced that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the scariest thing was when I started looking at myself in the mirror, and just for the first time, I hated what I saw. And I think that it's so hard for people to have a dark cloud not leaving them. I was just out of it. Like physically, it just wore, like you could see it so visibly. And that's when my parents and I decided that the only way to just deal with it is to walk through it. And that was a very scary journey for me. And the only thing that got me through was the thought that if I get through, which I didn't believe I could get through, which is why I do what I do. Because mental illness is a very irrational disease. You actually don't want to get better when you're that, depressed or that ill. It's not like a physical disease. That was the hardest part of my life. I feel like, people really feel happy and accomplished when they get a degree. For me, the happiest thing I felt was just seeing my mom and dad just smile. That was it. I only did that for them.
But Ali's business journey and route to hitting 1 million by 30 really began with a chance encounter on a 26-hour train ride to watch Egypt play Uruguay at the 2018 Russia World Cup. This taste of success spurred Ali on to do something he's seriously passionate about.
So when I got this experience in media, I was like, there's no way I'm just going to do this in media, because I've always wanted to do something in mental health. So I was like, what's the easiest way to tackle the challenge that I'm facing? And that was launching a WordPress magazine. And it was the first ever of its kind, the Middle East's mental health magazine, or the first mental health magazine in the Middle East. And it was just solely to talk about the cultural challenges that aren't ever spoken about when you go on Psych Daily or Psychology Today or whatever, because our voices aren't heard, like our cultural nuances, our family dynamics, our relationship dynamics. And that was where it all started. And I think like 3 weeks after, there was the Harvard Arab Conference, and that's where Empower's fate changed. I met the World Federation for Mental Health president-elect at the time. Now he's the president. And he invited me like 2 months after to the World Health Organization. And ever since then, the UN came after, MIT, Harvard. And we just switched the magazine into a podcast network because I had major issues monetizing it.
Woo! Alrighty. How is everyone doing today? My name is Ali Salama. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to Empathy Always Wins. It is honestly an honor and a pleasure to connect with you every week. Today's episode, I am extremely excited for because, there are 3 things that we discuss on this podcast: self-care, youth leadership, and entrepreneurship. And today's topic falls under self-care. How can I set boundaries?
I started by editing 8 shows out by myself and generating a revenue that allowed me to hire a full-time audio editor. And before today, we're making, we've already made 1 million downloads in 6 months. So that's how it started out. I found my biggest strength and I just kept focusing on it. And I didn't know that it would it took a lot. I remember it took a lot to edit those, the stress, the nights that I was managing people from the other side of the world, in Lebanon, in Saudi, while I was in Toronto, sometimes 9 hours difference. It was just a mess. But I knew that it was going to be 6 months before things started to get better. And it actually did. I was very calculated with that risk.
He now employs a decent-sized team based mostly in the Middle East. And he's told me he's finding real fulfillment.
For me right now, when I do the work that I do, I know that we're employing 18 people, many of them in Lebanon, in a country with an economic. I know that we're starting with impact from within before it is without. So that really makes me wake up every day with such a big heart, and also a bigger drive to just really provide young people with access.
I hope you won't mind me saying you're very young. To have a team of 18 people kind of relying on you for their livelihoods, what's that like?
It's a privilege. It's an absolute honor. I almost feel like I've always wanted to be a father, and by having this responsibility, the way the team is, the way we hang out every day on Slack and on channels that we can. Remote work changed our lives, right? So I don't know. I just feel very good. To be honest, I feel very good, but I don't think I would do anything else. Like, I just feel like this was exactly what I was meant to do.
For the first time these last few months, Ali started taking a paycheck himself.
I started to actually feel comfortable with our numbers. And when you don't pay yourself, it typically is a startup founder. It's because, this is sweat equity that you're building, i.e. the valuation of a company is all derived by your effort, your time. So other people don't have shareholders' equity. You have that. That means that it's your own skin in the game. And sometimes the company cannot afford that. I mean, I'm very aggressive on growth. So instead of my paying myself, I could have hired maybe 2 or 3 people in Egypt. And that's what I did until I felt that we are at a pace where, no, I can take a breath, I can be happy. And this is a pace where I just received an investment, and that's about time. And that meant that I'm comfortable with where we're at. Being very aggressive on growth and getting bigger numbers and running a bigger business is great, but also setting a boundary. And this is something that I emphasize a lot at Empower. I encourage anyone listening to us out there to do the same, because if we don't know when enough is enough, we will never get enough and we will never be satisfied. So knowing that from my therapy, from being very conscious on how, obsessive I am about a lot of things, I also know that can be a detriment in my growth. So I've almost had to set a boundary, and I've reached that this month. Yeah.
Can you put some numbers on it? Can you tell me what investment and growth you're seeing?
Yeah. So when we reach to a point where right now we are perhaps valued at more than $1 million, that every month we're making more than 120,000 downloads, that the team is at a capacity of 60%. Like, we're not overstretched. We're doing well. So Ali, you can afford to give yourself and still take on more and not need to hire more. And that's when I was like, oof, wow, that's a sign of relief right there. And it's a sign of growth. So when you're starting out, you're like almost weighing everything. Okay, do I need more here? Am I going to spend? But like at some time, it starts to kind of be a little bit easier for you when you have people that are delegated everything. And the moment you can step your foot off the engine and things are still running, that's when you know, oh God, you do have a business now. I've always dreamt of, things way bigger than numbers. I think the numbers were just validation that what I was thinking of was on the right track. But, I have a goal of hitting 1 billion, or like impacting 1 billion people with Empower. So the 1 million was amazing, to everyone listening, hitting 1 million, making 1 million, that's great. But that's all like the byproduct.
What's your advice for a young person in Egypt, for example, who wants to start a business, maybe wants to move into a media business like yours, and kind of needs to find their goal, their ambition, what it is they want to do?
I think my only advice would be try to really know your strengths. Social media has made everyone want the same thing. Literally, I want to be an influencer. I want to be a label. And I think that people are so unique in their capabilities that sometimes we need to take a step back and realize, okay, what are we really good at? Am I the best writer? Am I the best producer? Am I the best speaker? Am I the best? Because at times we need to know what we can offer to really build the right team and know what's missing from us. Like, no matter how good I think I am in one thing, I know exactly what I'm the worst in others. So for anyone listening to us, I would definitely start by seeing your strengths out and see how you can really add value to other people who need that strength, because that allows you to be confident. That allows you to go out there and put yourself out there and create the results that other people can't, because other people haven't done that exercise. For me, I knew that was speaking from day one, which is why I turned the magazine which was an editorial job that I absolutely did not enjoy at all, into a podcasting job, which was something I was really good at, speaking, because I just focused on that strength. And I think that the power of partnerships, the power of understanding yourself, accepting vulnerability and leading despite being vulnerable, I think that's the key to any 21st century leader of success.
Do you think somebody without your social privileges could achieve what you've achieved?
Absolutely. Why do I say that? Is because I had many opportunities to receive funds from so many people, millions actually. I let each and every single one of those offers go away because I wanted my brand, the brand that I built from a laptop connection, from my education, which anyone can get in the world if they apply and they pursue what they love. I wanted that internet connection to make that change. No one built my brand on LinkedIn. No one built my brand on Instagram. And energy never lies. If you really love what you do, when you lead with passion and your energy, if you focus on that, it's infectious.
That's Ali Salama, podcaster, entrepreneur and mental health advocate. And I'll let him end this episode of Million by 30 on Business Daily.
What I really experienced from an illness or a disorder was the most horrific experience of my life. And I knew that if I could turn that around, I could be whoever I wanted to be. And that's the same thing I want to echo to anyone else out there listening. If you can turn your worst nightmare into something that you can look back at, you too can be the most magnificent thing that you can ever be.
I'm Felicity Hanna, and this programme was produced by Rory Claydon. If you enjoyed it, you can find more episodes on BBC Sounds or wherever you usually get your podcasts.